Hey guys, welcome to Insights with Anastasia. Today I'm going to talk about some topic that is not usually discussed on YouTube, or at least not as often as I would probably like and I think would be important for people. So this is the topic about English language as being one of the key skills that you need to have if you are immigrant or if you're thinking about moving to English speaking country, you want to become a data analyst. Or for example, if you are a data analyst in a country that is not English speaking and you're planning to move. So what level of English do you need to succeed as a data analyst? So in order to answer these questions, I went to my friend ChatGPT and asked uh, what is the level of English you need to be a data analyst. And the answer I got was you have to have professional proficiency. I mean, nah, thank you for the answer, but what exactly is professional proficiency means for a person who is learning English or for a person who has certain level of English but not sure if it's enough for the day-to-day job, day-to-day work in this role. So I went further and explored what exactly is needed from a person working as a data analyst and what language skills they need to have to be able to be effective communicator in this role. So I come up with three areas that where you need English language. So obviously, once we talk a little bit about theory and some of the fundamentals that you need, I will share my own experience, how I learned English for my data analyst role. So where I started and how I progressed towards the level of English that was enough to apply for a job and work as a data analyst. But again, let's get back to these three areas that you need your English language for. So the first area is understanding complex information. So basically, as a data analyst, you will have to work with a large amount of data. You will have to work with specific field. For example, I work in marketing, and there is a lot of marketing terms, and I have to know all of them. I have to explain all of them. And for example, if there's any data set, I have to understand all the words and all the terminology in English to be able to do successful analysis. Understanding complex information was one of the easiest areas for me personally, because at that time when I decided to be a data analyst, I already started taking courses in English. I already read some books in English, articles. So I knew the terminology, I knew how to translate my expertise in marketing and digital marketing to English. So it wasn't such a big leap, such a big jump from my level of English to the level of technical level of the business understanding that I needed to work as a data analyst in marketing field. So the second thing, you need to be able to communicate fluently and frequently at your work with your colleagues during the meetings. You should be able to write reports. But the most important is, for me especially, it's how you present your findings and insights after the analysis. So for example, you can work with other data analysts, you can work with leadership team or a brand team. And often you have to change the way you present, the way you speak, the way you communicate your insights, depending on the level of data knowledge that your audience has. So for me, it was the most difficult part, and it still is. I make mistakes. I do make mistakes during the meetings, during the presentation. Sometimes I do notice them and correct. Sometimes I don't, but obviously it is always my opportunity. There's like a big opportunity for me to improve it. How can you improve your communication to be able to be fluent and talk to people in a language they can understand? So I think there is not an easy answer to that. Again, depending on the field that you are in, you can probably find some connections and people that you can talk about. For example, I was in marketing, and I would find people to talk about marketing, about some data analysis in this field. And overall, for example, just to try and explain people something that is complex using simple words, it sounds simple, but it is really hard, especially when it's like in a work environment and you have to stay professional, but at the same time you have to explain some things in a simple and clear manner. That's the, the most difficult skill, I think, in the data analyst role, especially, well, at least for the immigrants and people who for whom for whom for whom English is a second language. Okay, let's get back to the fluent and accurate communication. So when I decided that I want to pursue data analyst career, along with the data related courses and books that I was reading at the time, I also found a teacher, English language teacher, to practice like speaking to somebody. So I knew I would love to stay in the marketing field. So I found someone who had experience in marketing. So my teacher was a marketing researcher in the past, and they would help me understand what language is used in this area. They would talk to me about some different marketing uh, initiatives that I may possibly run into and have to communicate. So it was really helpful. So I guess you need to understand what is your field that you want to work in as a data analyst, whether it's like finance, marketing, medicine, um, healthcare. I mean, anything that you're interested in, just start looking for someone who can understand the field, who can talk to you using the terminology and jargon that is used in this field. It took me, I would say, a couple of years to practice my English before I was confident enough to start interviewing. Obviously, in my case, I was taking care of my daughter, so it wasn't full time learning, it wasn't full time kind of dedication, it was just a couple of hours per day. But for example, if you have more time, if you have more resources, you can speed up this time and learn more. And again, it depends on the level of English you're starting with. For example, I've never used English in professional settings before, so I knew like my level of English was probably B1. I don't know, so I could talk to people. I would travel and I would talk to people on different topics, but in professional settings, I never had experience to be able to communicate my uh, thoughts and ideas in English. So that was I was working on. And the third part that is where you need your English skills is to be able to handle different professional situations. And I think this is a part of the previous uh, previous area that we talk about frequent and fluent communication. But what's different here is it's not only during your regular working hours, like during the meetings, during the conversation with your colleagues. Sometimes you will need to present for a broader audience. For example, take be a part of the conference, present on a conference, or for example, you can lead a project and where you need to communicate with people from different backgrounds, or for example, if you work in an international company, you might be might participate in some of the projects when you work with people from different countries. And for example, you might need to learn some of the phrases, some of the jargon, or some of the maybe, I don't know, like topics that you need to be able to that you need to know, and you need to know how to speak to be able to kind of participate in those meetings. I would just learn some of the phrases that is At the beginning, they were so ridiculous to me, and I know this is like a corporate jargon or something that I don't think is valuable, but I hear people speaking this, like talking about, like saying this words over and over again, like I'll circle back, I'll touch base with my team, and I was like, what are they talking about? Especially when you like, well, I've been living in the United States for 2 years, and I am not that kind of fluent in those phrases, so I wouldn't exactly understand what that means. Eventually, I realized this is just there's like a certain phrases and just like words that people use in a professional settings to be able to communicate with other people. And again, you don't have to say those words, but sometimes it's just nice to be on the same page with people. Okay, now that we talk a little bit about broad English level that you need for a data analyst role, I want also talk a little bit about interview skills. And I think this is a separate from level of English that you need for work as a data analyst. Interviews skills, interview English, like being able to express your ideas during interview is a completely different beast that you need to understand how to do. So again, I talked to you about my coach with the marketing background, and I also use them to help me kind of prepare for the interview process. We would go over mock interview, so they would ask me, hey, tell me about yourself, and like, I don't know, like any other questions that usually a part of the interview process, behavioral questions. Tell me about the time when you like faced a difficult situation with your colleague. Tell me about the time when you was proud of your work. Like all those like questions. At the time, it looked very tedious. They would ask me questions. I would answer, and we would do it over and over again because like it wasn't always well. I think most of the time I couldn't just start the conversation, especially this "tell me about yourself" question that wasn't really coming out right from me. And we would just practice like months and months. And then, for example, if it wasn't enough, I would just like practice um, like with a mirror. I would just ask myself the same questions and try to answer them. I would also record myself, hear back the audio, so I would notice some mistakes and hesitations in the answer, and then I would re-record and try it over and over again. So that was really helpful for me, because overall I'm a very social anxious person, and even when I had interview in my like in the Russian language, I would feel really stressed. I wouldn't know what to say, and I was like uncomfortable. And especially speaking English language was a really tough for me. It was really difficult. I would just forget words. So having this practice, having this like that, you just train your body, you train your brain to be able to um, repeat those answers. It is really helpful. So I do recommend it for people. Even if you think that you're great at answering those questions, it's never too much of practice. Well, that's at least that's been true for me for my whole career. Okay, now, so we talked about the broader skills, we talked about interview skills, and now from my experience, I also want to share one of the tips that would help me if I knew it beforehand. So when you just start your first role, you are in the meetings a lot of time, and you need to introduce yourself. I highly recommend just to memorize your elevator pitch, practice and practice over and over again before you start working. And when I say practice, it doesn't mean you have to like think it in your mind, you have to clearly use your mouth to say those words, because how you like think about it and how you say it's a two different, I think it's two different mechanisms working for you. So you should really speak out loud. So then when you are introducing yourself to other people, it's easy, it's comfortable, and you feel confident enough to maybe joke or maybe say something else. When I started working in Europe, it wasn't such a big thing. It wasn't a big thing to introduce yourself. I would just start working and people would just say, hey, this is Anastasia, new to our team, welcome, blah. But here in the United States, it's more kind of, you need to officially introduce yourself, tell about yourself, what you did in the past, why you in this role, and kind of thing. And I I was kind of caught off guard when I first started, and I didn't know what to say. I was like, well, Anastasia, hi, glad to be here. But yeah, so just try and find some of the sentences, some of the phrases that you would like to describe, would like to tell about yourself to your future colleagues. That will really, really help you. Okay, thank you guys. I hope it's been helpful for you. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions or ways how we can learn English and become a better communicator in our data analytics community. Bye!